I've got a 2010 Venza. It's a great car. And the thing about these is this Pano roof tends to leak on them. This car had 149,000 miles or so on it when I bought it. It has about 155 now. And one thing that I didn't do was the research enough to understand what this stain is right here. And this is a water stain, and it's on both A-pillars. And I've got a little bit on the B-pillar, and I definitely have it on the C-pillar back there. So what's happening is the Pano roof is leaking because these don't have a drain hose. All they have around the entire thing is a seal, and that seal fails. So what I'm going to do in this video is show you the removal of the headliner and what steps to take to remove the Pano roof and reseal it. Disclaimer, I work in a Toyota factory, have for almost 21 years, and I put a lot of headliners in over my years. Sun visors, roof consoles, windshields. This is kind of the thing that I did, assist grips. So in order to start doing this, you have to remove the headliner, and in order to do that, starting out, you'll have to remove the sun visor clip, the sun visor. There's 2 screws here. These are most likely Phillips head. You'll have to get a plastic tool behind this sun visor cap and pop it down. And then after we get those, we have to do assist grips. These have a cap right here. Again, take something that won't mutilate, won't scratch. Pop these caps off, and then the assist grips have a clip inside of them. You'll need to take the rearview mirror off, take this console down, and I'll probably show you each step, but the console pops down, and then these A-pillars pop out. Like I said, I work at a Toyota factory, and so I know the kind of the repair procedures. So we're not going to take the lowers out. All we're going to do is take the uppers out, but we're going to pull the lowers away. And once we get all of these upper pillars out, we'll be able to take the headliner down, and that will start to expose all of the fasteners that hold the Pano roof in. Also, you should disconnect the battery, which I did for a couple of reasons. Number one, we're going to have to take the airbag down, a couple of bolts out of the airbag to get to some brackets that are up in here on each side, but also because I knew I'd have the doors open for an extended period of time, and I didn't want to wear the battery down. So I'll take pictures and videos all along the way to kind of give you an idea of the steps that I take. So the sun visor, the clip on the sun visor, it looks like this, and you got to get a tool up underneath. It sits like this. Get a tool up underneath here, because these 4 tabs on each side, they hold it up against the housing or the base, and that's what holds this on. And then you take out these 2 Phillips head screws, and that takes both sun visors out. Okay, so on the assist grip, this clip is here, and you can either pop it off this way or the back side on both of them. In fact, that's the way it is on all 4 of them. But this clip right here, as you can see, it's a top and then a bottom. You squeeze it and you pull it out. So what I'm going to have to do in this one is get a tool up here and push down as I'm pushing up to get it to come out. But be careful, because they can go inside of there. Okay, so next is the roof console. And I've already got this one out, but I'll kind of show you how this goes in. You've got a connector that comes here, but once it's in, this snaps around these tabs right here. These tabs right, sorry about that. These tabs right here, they sit up in the headliner, and then there's 2 clips right there that you'll pretty much just have to kind of give a yank, and they go in these 2 holes right here, and that loosens the front of the headliner. There's also a little bit of
Velcro here and also right here as well, but that's just holds it a little bit. And also what came down with it was the rear view mirror cover, which I have right here. This basically just kind of goes over right there, and these two tabs go up under the headliner, and that's not a big deal. It came down when the roof console came down. And then next you'll want to take the rear view mirror down, and that's right here, and that's going to be a T20. So you just loosen that, pull the mirror off, and pull this connection right here. So after you get the roof console out and after you get the rear view mirror off, be careful, don't remove that screw too far. It'll fall out and you could lose it. So be careful with that. I'm going to pull these A-pillars down. There's a couple of clips in here. They pull down and then they have a clip inside there. I believe there's two of them. I'll let you know when I get it pulled out. I'm going to do both A-pillars, and I'll let you see that when I'm done. So the A-pillar comes out and it's got a couple of clips on it. This top clip is a tethered clip, and it's pretty difficult to get out. You'll have to get some sort of tool behind this part of it and pry it out, and you just kind of got to be hard and swift with it. When it goes back in, it's tethered right here. This allows it to pull out, and, you know, I guess in case you need to unhook a wire or something, but it snaps back in just like that. And then it's got this other clip right here, and that's just a standard garnish clip. And then down here, these tabs, when you reinstall it, the tabs will go back into the IP, the instrument panel. And after that, after the A-pillars come out, you'll have to unhook these two wires down here. These are the headliner wires, and you've got 1-2 clips. Those will have to come out because the headliner is going to completely come out, and they're just attached to the headliner with tape here. So there's this clip, and there's also that clip, and you'll just get up behind there and pry those out. And that'll be the same on both sides. So I was actually wrong a minute ago. Besides this clip and this other clip here, both these wire connectors, they do have a clip on the back side of them. You just get behind them and you pop those two out, and then each of these two wire connectors, they have a tab on them, and you pull them out. I imagine that'll be much the same on the other side. So the passenger side actually had a few more clips, and it's because of the rear washer hose. So this is the hose for the rear washer, and so you have to pop these clips out all along here, and that rear washer disconnects right down there. You do not have to pop that last clip out, but you do have to disconnect this by pushing down that tab and pulling it out. And it's just that simple. So next I'm going to work on the B-pillars here. Probably going to pop them out. I know there's a bolt down here, 10mm bolt, and so they'll pop out at the top. In fact, I may just go ahead and work on that now. It's kind of difficult with just one hand. Peel back the weather strip, and you can kind of get up underneath here. It may be too difficult. I may just have to yeah, I'm gonna have to do it off camera. So I'm gonna pop this out. In order to get to this screw that's under here, you'll also have to pull away the lower B-pillar, but it just has clips that hold it in. There's no screws on this one, but there is a 10mm bolt that holds the rest of this one in. It's the same on both sides. I'll show you it when I get it done. Okay, so for the B-pillar, it comes in two pieces. What you really need to do is start with the lower B-pillar, and you'll need to get in behind the weather strip here and pop it out. It just has clips on the back side of the lower, and they just clip into the body, and then that will allow you access to that right there, which is a 10mm bolt that I've already taken out, and then you can pull it out, but just be aware that this fits up under the headliner, so you need to pull the bottom out before you pull the top out, and you're just going to let this hang down there. There's no reason to do anything else. When these go in, there's kind of a trick to get this back lined up on top of there, and that's very important, and I'll show you that later. But here is the 10mm bolt, and this will be the same on the driver and the passenger side. So the way to get this hook out is to put your fingers here, push this little button in, and that will release the clips on it, and it just pulls out. And so now I'm working on getting the rest of this lower C and D pillar out, and they should just pop away, but I'm going to need both hands for it. Okay, now as far as removing the headliner goes, you just have to pull it down. There are these pieces of Velcro. There's 2 on each side. There are 5 along the front and 5 along the center on each side, or in the middle, and then 5 along the back as well. The headliner also curves over this lip right here in various places, and you just kind of got to get a hold of it and give it a pull down, and it's up there pretty securely. And sometimes these come out and they have channels that they go back into, so you have to watch for that. Make sure that you have them all when you get done ready to put it back together. So all I've got to do now is pull the back down, and I'll have the headliner out. And my plan is to leave the headliner down in the vehicle while I take out all the nuts and bolts for the Pano roof. Okay, so now I am working on getting the sunroof or the Pano roof brackets out. So you've got, I don't know if you can see that very well, got this bracket here, which has 2 bolts and 2 nuts in it. You then have this big bracket by this airbag, and it's got also 3 nuts and 3 bolts. But here's the kicker on this one, is that you have 2 airbag bolts to take out as well, 1 and 2, and just allow this canister to roll down, and you can get to all of these on this one. As you can see, I've got, oh, that's oil, okay. But this is where it's important that you take the negative cable off the battery, and then we've got one last one right down here that's just got 1 nut and 1 bolt. And like we said before, everything in here is a 10mm. Okay, now I've got all the brackets out that hold this in, and now we've got to start working on the nuts. And those nuts are here. They are 12mm. I was wrong, I told you 10. They are 12mm, and there are 4 along the front, 4 along the rear, 5 along each side, for a total of 18. So once you take those 18 out, your sunroof or your Pano roof should just slide pick straight up.
Okay, now that I've got all 18 nuts out, it was a little more difficult than I thought because I was concerned about flexing or breaking. But really all you have to do now is break the seal all the way around it. And it's probably going to take about 4 people to get this pulled out. But once you get the seal broken all the way around, pick it up. You have to come straight up because there's studs that come through the body. Pick it straight up, and then you'll have to kind of carry it out and find something to set it on. I've got a couple sawhorses set up over there. And I'm going to flip it over, clean the body, and hopefully get it resealed. Okay, so I started cleaning. All I did was I first vacuumed, and then I took some soapy water and a spray bottle, and I just sprayed on it, and then I took some adhesive remover. This came from Walmart. I bought it for something else, and I had it, and that's what I'm using to remove. I just kind of lightly sprayed, and I'll just let it set, and then I'll scrape the rest of it up and wipe it out, and that's how I got it to be, pretty clean and ready for adhesive. But once I get done doing this, I am going to wipe the whole track down with alcohol. Okay, so now I've got the entire panel roof opening cleaned up. Now I'm going to work on the panel roof itself. What I found worked best was to do it a section at a time. Like I said, I cleaned it with soapy water, and then I let the adhesive remover set for a little bit, and I scraped and vacuumed kind of all at the same time. All of this took me probably an hour to get all of this cleaned up this good. And they actually have these channels here. These are roof moldings, and you can pull these up, but just be warned that there's an adhesive strip on here that will separate on the inside, and you'll have to either use something else to put it back down. But there can get a lot of buildup in here. I found that most of the buildup was right here, but the rest of this channel was clean all the way back, and that's kind of where it runs down and out down the back of your vehicle. But let me show you something over here on this. So the adhesive stays on here, and I believe when it was manufactured, the adhesive was put on here first. Because there's, as you can see, these little marks, and that kind of indicates where the adhesive is supposed to go. But what I have found is that it sticks to this really well. And so you can kind of see here that kind of right in here, you can see I've got it down to bare paint. But I have scraped on this little section here for a couple of minutes yet. And so I think what I'm going to try to do is get some plastic. They make these plastic razor blades, and see if I can get it all the way off. I'd rather not leave that because I don't want the failure to continue. So I'd rather get it down to bare paint, kind of like right there. So it's going to take a little while. I believe this will take a lot longer. Okay, so I've now got the moonroof, or the panel roof, completely ready to go. I have used what is butyl sealer. It comes in this box right here. It's Fastenex. I had every intention of using 3M ribbon tape, which I think would probably be a little bit better. But this is how this stuff comes. It comes in an eighth of an inch thick, which I don't believe is very thick at all, or thick enough
But what I did with this was, see if I can show you. I folded it over to get the thickness that I wanted all the way through. And this stuff is really good because it just basically, once it sticks to itself, it's done. It's stuck, as you can see there. So I folded it all the way through, and then as I went, I peeled the tape back and started putting it down on the moonroof, the Pano roof. Now I was able to get the Pano roof completely clean. It took probably an hour and a half, or maybe just a little bit longer. But I did end up using a solvent or an adhesive remover. But I was able to get it completely clean, and now I've got this back on, and I just put the tape that I took off, I put it back on to just kind of protect it until I'm ready to put it on. And as you can see, this is what we've got now. This is the actual start-stop point. Because I work where I do, I kind of have an idea of what the markings on the Pano roof mean. And this is a start-stop, and it's an overlap. And so this is going to be on the front left-hand side by the motor, just to the left of the motor if it's sitting in this position that it's supposed to. And there are marks in the corner that give you a guide as to where you're supposed to put it down, and you just have to follow those marks. As far as everything else, you're supposed to come to the edge. Since there's no markings, and I could tell by where the previous one was, it indicates that you're supposed to come to the edge. And I'll just show you. That's one of those marks right there, and I believe there is another one, and it just tells you that's the path that you're supposed to take for that. So right now I'm waiting for help to get here, so we can go ahead and put it in. And what I'll probably do is leave the tape on it. I will pick it up, get it to where I'm close, and when we're ready to actually set it in, I'll probably put somebody inside. I probably will have 4 to 5 of us. We'll put somebody inside and we'll get it lined up. There's actually a hole right there in the center, which I believe is that one right there. It does not take a stud. It does not take a nut, and it's actually bigger than the rest of them. So this is it, and that's how you line it up front to back. You just kind of, as you go down, you have to be careful where you're putting it, but this is how you line it up, and you know where it goes. So when they put it in, they use this right here with that hole to line up where it goes. And there's also one in the back. It's right here. This does not take a fastener on it, a nut, but the rest of them do. Okay, so here's what the final product kind of looks like. I've got it fairly thick and maybe a little too thick. I'm not quite sure, but it will definitely squeeze, especially with as many fasteners as there are along the whole thing. So it's getting ready to go in, and I probably won't show that process because I don't have anybody to video it, as I've got several people coming over to help me get it put back in. So I will show you when we get it put in. Okay, so now the Pano roof is in. That stuff was pretty sticky. We had to try to move it forward to manage this gap a little bit. We were probably twice as big when we first set it down, and it stuck right away. So kind of make sure that you get it where you want it. And I'll show you that there's a datum in here, or a place that you start, and it's this big one here. There is no nut that goes on here, just these smaller ones. I think this is about 8 millimeter. It's just a stud that they put on there. Not quite sure why, but I'm going to go ahead and hand start everything around, and then torque them down to spec. And once I get that done, I'll put the brackets back on, and I'll show you what that is. I've got to go look up the torque spec on them, and I'll let you know what that is at that time and get the airbags fastened in. Okay, so I now have all 18 nuts and all 3 brackets on each side, and the airbag back up. So there are some temp tabs. There are some tabs in the airbag that you need to get set in the holes before you shoot the bolts or tighten the bolts. All the sunroof is 56 Newton meters, and which is really not a high torque, but just be careful with them. I think I twisted one of the back corner studs to where it won't tighten, but I've got the other 17 to do it. The airbag torque is a little bit higher. I'm not going to tell you the torque. I'd prefer, if you're going to do it yourself, that you're going to look it up, because I don't want to tell you wrong and somehow you have a failure down the road. So the next thing that I'm going to do is to put the headliner back up, and I know that this has to fit, this right here has to fit over here, so I may have to get some help on that to get that set in place where it needs to go. So that'll be the next thing after that. Okay, so for the headliner, I started in front, and the headliner's pretty light, but I did get the front of it kind of hooked over this the sunroof with the front opening. And there's the Velcro that I told you guys about earlier on both those sides. There's 2 here, there's 5 along the front. I set those, and then I actually end up setting the rest of them, the 5 along the middle and the 5 along the back, and then the light. But then when I went to put in these, they didn't line up. They were shifted that way, so I had to pull the headliner down, starting at the middle section. Actually, I started here, pulled all of this down to the middle section, and then I came back here, shifted it over, and I got these roof pins to line back up. And then I went ahead and went around all of the areas where there's Velcro, and I put those up. So next, I think I'm going to work front to back, because that's how they're put in. The A-pillars are put in first, and then we'll put in the B-pillars, and then we'll put in the C and the D, which is all one. Actually, next, I'm sorry, I'm going to do the assist grips. I'll get all 4 assist grips in. Okay, so I'm going to put the assist grips in next, and they're pretty straightforward. After you pull them out, you get these, you'll have to reassemble them. But on the back one's got the hook, so make sure that it goes up first, or it goes pointed up, and then they click in. No, it's not so easy. That one clicked in properly. That one I haven't got in yet, so I may have to kind of pull the headliner up. I'll need my other hand to do that. Okay, so there's a top and a bottom tab. This one doesn't matter which way it goes in, and you should hear 2 clicks. That top one, you see that top one's not in. You kind of got to push the headliner up to get those other 2 clicks, and you know they're in when you get both those clicks on each side, and you give it a tug up and down, and you don't see a gap here. All right, so after the assist grips, the next thing I'm going to do is finish running these wires and get them hooked up, get them clipped back in on both sides, and I'll come back to you when I get the A-pillars either put in or ready to go. They're going to be kind of tough, because typically they'll go in without the windshield in. The headliner will be in, the dash will be in, but the headliner is not, or I'm sorry, the windshield is not in at this time, so you can actually reach through, kind of get everything set. So, but it shouldn't be too big of a problem. And then we've got to get the weather strip put back around the headliner and the A-pillar as well. Okay, so when you put the A-pillar in, you've got 3 tabs, and you've got 1 tab up here, you've got another tab there, and then you've got another tab here that's got to go in this spot right here. So you really got to get this up here flush down there like that before you can work the rest of it in. In order to get all the clips to line up, there's 2 clips on the inside, this one here and this one down here. You've really got to kind of get it shoved down towards the dash, towards the IP, and this has to be more like that, and then the rest of it should go in just fine. The other side went in fairly easily, and this was just 1 hand, so once I get my other hand on it, get the weather strip back around it, it'll fit in nicely. Just remember, at this point, you cannot forget to hook up that hose.
That's your rear drain hose. And if you don't hook it up and you go to run rear washer, you're going to get water on your floor eventually. And it's also a tip is that on both sides, it's easier to connect the wires before you clip them into the body. Okay, so after I got the A-pillars in, the next thing I'm going to do is work on the sun visors. And technically these should have been in a lot earlier. And what they do, they're two-phase. They go in once. There's a clip here and on the back side. Sorry, there's a clip here and on the back side. And then this shoves back up. And then if you give them a shake, they should be nice and tight with no gap around them. So when you pull these out, you give this part a twist, and maybe this is a little bit late. You give this part a twist and then pull it out, and then you have to work this out. But when you put them together, you just put it in with this gap in here like this, and it will slide up in there just like that. And see if you can see both the base, the front and the back is set, and that's what you want before you close it, or you're going to have some trouble with it. So next I'm going to work on the sun visors. And a little tidbit here, this is actually a switch. So the visor goes in there and it screws in right here with two Phillips heads. And when you put your visor down, it enables this. So whenever you slide open the vanity mirror, it turns the light on. So there's actually, if it doesn't work, you've got a connection problem, but you shouldn't have any issues. And this switch just stays with the headliner. Okay, so on the visor, I do have a bit of an install tip. When you start with the visor, make sure that this is in this position, up and not down, and you put that in. See, there's your switch. That makes your switch right there. You get that up in there. You actually hang it here, and then you're free to work. Put your two screws in there. Front goes first, then back, and then I'll show you how to put the cap on. And they're both the same on both sides. Just make sure you get the right visor. I think the other one for the driver's side has got some warnings right there. All right, so after you get both visor screws in, the visor cap is actually pretty simple. It's got a slit, and the slit goes forward, and you basically just push it on like so, and it's got some clips around it. Make sure it's good there, and then I kind of put two fingers up under here and make sure you're good there. That's how the visor cap goes on, and exactly the same on the other side. All right, so next is the roof console, and so this is the wire connection for the motor for the panel roof to open your sunroof, and the connection is actually right up behind here, and it goes in this direction, and it just snaps in like that. Make sure that's secure, and then this connector here goes to the roof console, and it goes right there in the back. And then the roof console, these three tabs right here will hook up on the roof, the headliner, and the two tabs right there will fit in. I'm not quite sure where, maybe up there in the maybe up there, but they also has a bit of Velcro in this area here, so that will also hold it in. Yeah, so I actually showed you backwards. I had it rotated, so the the wire connection goes here. The three tabs go up on this part of the headliner, and then the two clips are up front with the Velcro right there in the middle. So next will be the rear view mirror. I'm not going to show you it. It's pretty straightforward. It comes on here. It's got a T20, connect the wire, and then you just put the wire cover back over it. These two tabs go up underneath the headliner, and it will just sit like that. So I'm not going to show you that. I'll just go ahead and do it. And the next thing that I'm going to do is the B-pillar, which are these over here. There's a little bit of a trick to them. Okay, I'm about to put the
left-hand B-pillar in. I've got the right-hand one in just because I wanted to figure out what I needed to tell you. So there's a couple things that are pretty important here. So you've got one clip that's got to go in a hole that is right there. You can kind of see it. And then not only that, but this has to go up underneath the headliner. So it has to kind of go in with the top first. But there's some other important things here. This tab on the inside of this pillar here, this garnish, must sit on top of this right here, okay? Or your adjuster won't work properly. So when you squeeze the button here, it will depress this white right here and allow this to move up and down freely. So put them both in the down position, and then as you slide the top in, you really kind of got to watch to make sure that this piece sits on top of this piece right here. If it doesn't, your seatbelt won't function properly, but you should know because it should have a pretty smooth function to it. Just like this one over here. This one's got a pretty smooth function. It just goes up and down. It'll kind of catch if it doesn't work properly. It'll catch. It should go up without pushing the button, but when it comes back down. So that's really important. So this is what I'm talking about. I'm not sure if you're even going to be able to see this or not. Most likely not. Yeah. Well, I don't have any good way to tell you how to get the D-pillars and the C and the D-pillars one piece, how to get those back in. They were pretty much a struggle. As you can see, I still have a pretty good sized gap over here. I did have to take down the assist grips again, and honestly I had to fold the headliner. I don't see any noticeable creases other than, you know, just the dirt probably from my hands, but that'll clean off, and put all the bolts back in, and the cargo hooks, like I said, I broke one, so I'm either gonna have to get a new one or glue that back on or deal with it not being there. So overall, this is a pretty tough job. I don't know. I mean, is it worth $1,000 to you or $1,700 to have somebody else do it? You know, I don't know. Maybe your Venza leaks and it's really not that big a deal to you. But you know, it's your choice. Hopefully this helps some DIYers that choose to want to do their own. It seems like it's set down pretty good. This was raised up and before I started tightening the bolts, and it looks pretty uniform all the way across. Up front, same thing. I feel like it's maybe even a little lower than it was. I'm getting ready to get the windshield replaced this week because it's cracked, but this opened, everything functioned well. You know, hooked the battery back up, everything functions well, and I'm just happy I got my Venza back, and hopefully I'll not have a leak anymore. So I'm getting ready probably to put some heavy water on it. It's probably been 2 hours since we reset the Pano roof back in, and all of it took me probably 2 hours to get put back together, which I don't think was too bad. I'd say all told I've got probably 8 hours in it. I don't know if I'd do another one or not, but you know, I don't know. I guess it depends on how bad the leak would bother me. Hopefully it won't leak anymore, and if it does, I'm not sure what I would do. So good luck if you decide you want to try to do it.